if and when this kidney fails, I think I'll be able to cope with that. I think I'll be able to
Hmm.
adapt with that. I've been through it already.
Yes.
My concern and why we need more support for caregivers, my concern is her. When I went to junior high, I had one friend that I would always like, who knew my situation, and to this
Yeah.
day I still consider him one of my best friends. John Tam, if you're watching this, that's you. I've been fortunate to work in this space and live in this space, professionally for 7, 8 years now. And what I've noticed, the stories I hear is,
Hmm.
I wasn't even looking for anybody to be my living donor, but I was telling them that this is what I was going through. People just say,
Yes.
I'll donate. Like, what do you need? What's the next?
Welcome to the Green Table Talk. I'm your host, Jennen Johnson. Today we have my friend Manuel joining us. Manuel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be
Of
here.
course. Excellent. So we're going to talk about your journey with kidney transplant. But before we get into that, I'd like to find out more about you. So why don't you share with our viewers more about Manuel, your hobbies, likes, dislikes, what you do for fun? Give us an insight.
Yeah, great question. I mean, okay, so I'll start off by just pointing out that I am based in Edmonton, Alberta. So born and raised here in Edmonton, on the same side of the city that I basically was born in. So I've been loving that. Love Edmonton. Will always be in Edmonton, despite how much I love traveling and the other cities that I visit. A little bit about me. I think the biggest thing right now that I share with folks is I'm a recent, not so recent father, but my our first child. So my wife and I had a child last year. He's now 19 months, and the time has flown by. Can't even explain how quick it's gone by, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what keeps us preoccupied these days for sure. Of course, before then, we were in COVID, where certainly a lot of the activities that we normally would do, going out to local restaurants, we're big foodies, restaurants, trying out the different coffees, I'm into craft beers. Weren't able to do that, but that's what you would see Manuel post or pre 2020 doing. Manuel 2023 is taking care of his kid, taking him outdoors and just trying to be active with him, and still taking him to restaurants though. And
Mm-hmm.
he has grown up to be a foodie. So that's a little bit about me on the personal side. On the professional side, happy to say I am very fortunate and privileged to work with an amazing organization. We are called the Canadian Donation and Transplantation Research Network. My role there is I have a dual role, two hats. I'm the patient, family, and donor partnerships manager, and also the knowledge mobilization manager. So, in a nutshell, I support patient partners to be integrated into the different projects that CDTRP supports, into our different activities, into our different leadership and governance activities that we have. Because myself as a patient and the organization, of course, believe that patient partners really are at the core of the work that we do, and research specifically and policy has to be reflective of patient priorities. So if it's not reflective of what their current priorities are, then what are we doing? So very privileged to be in that role. And then in terms of the knowledge mobilization hat, uh, all this great research comes out, scientific research comes out. How do we make that accessible to the public and to our patients? Um, the knowledge is being disseminated, so it's being understood, and hopefully it's being implemented in different settings, so there's an impact there. So that's a short, not so short summary of myself.
Beautiful. Well, first of all, congratulations on your son. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
And he will always keep you on your toes and keep you active, which is good.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yes. And in terms of your role and in terms of the great work that the organization is doing, that is great. That's something that's definitely needed. So hats off to you for doing that because that's what we need. That's definitely what we need. So thank
Great.
you for doing that.
Yeah, privilege.
So let me know about your situation. What caused your kidney failure?
Yeah, that's a very non-linear story, as I'm sure with most transplant patients or pre or post transplant patients experience. Officially, I was diagnosed with kidney failure at the age of 19. was my first semester in post-secondary, super eager, finishing up the first semester, and that's when I started feeling just a little off. It was interesting, whenever I reflect on my story, I would have never thought organ failure. Um, when I was going through what I went through, but in a nutshell, what would happen was I all of a sudden one day started my vision got a little blurry. So I would always sit in the back of the class because I thought it was cool and whatnot. So cool kids in the back of the class. And it was almost overnight where all of a sudden I couldn't see the board, which I thought very bizarre, which I thought was very bizarre. What I do, okay, so I moved to the front of the class and that was fine. But as my vision wasn't getting corrected, I reached out to my optometrist. I went to go see him. He took a look at things and everything seemed fine. So it wasn't really a cause for concern. But over the time of maybe like 2 weeks between that first symptom hitting, where it was a little bit of a blurry eye vision, to 2 weeks later, I was in emergency. The symptoms were blurry vision to where just a lack of energy to the point where I couldn't even get out of the bed, to the point where I couldn't even eat anything. I remember like the day or two before I went to emergency, like I would try to eat a mandarin, just try to get something in me, and it would
Mm-hmm.
just come right up. Um, and it was an interesting story actually how I was forced. I will say I was forced to go to emergency. Um, I got sick. I got sick one day, ran to the bathroom, didn't make it to the bathroom, try to clean up the evidence that had happened. And my
Mm-hmm.
dad, so I went back to my room, just laid there, and my dad came storming in, and he's like, "What is happening? Why did you do this? Like, what the heck is going on?" Because I never told my family that I wasn't doing well. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of hid in my room. I played it off as being super stressed and just like worked up about finals at school. So they
Mm-hmm.
kind of left me alone. And it was
So
at that
why did you not, one second, why didn't you share that with them? Did you
yeah
think that it was embarrassing or you figured you just work it out? Why didn't you share that with them?
Yeah, I figured I would just work it out. Part of
Mm.
my very non-linear story is that I basically was born within the medical system. So when I was born, about a week later, I was diagnosed with what's called posterior urethral valve. So at literally 1 week old, all the way till early teens, like I was in and out of the hospital, and
Mm-hmm.
specifically until I was about 8 years old. I lived in the hospital. Like I basically lived in the hospital, and even now, my dad always jokes that the University of Alberta Hospital here is my second home. Even now, when we drive by, it's like, "Hey, look, it's your second home. Do you remember?" Um, so I was born with this disease called posterior urethral valve. Um, that would eventually cause my kidneys to fail, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize that at that point, that's what
Mm-hmm.
it's about. So to the question, why did I hide it?
Mm-hmm.
Twofold. I grew up in the system, in the medical system, and I did not want to go back. There was many uncomfortable procedures, and
Yes.
just like I did not want to go back there. I thought it wasn't that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
So we hit it. Um, and I also hit it too. I mean, that's a great question. I don't know. I think I just didn't want to worry my parents. I really didn't think it was anything serious. I thought maybe, hey, it was the stress or something. So,
Yeah.
um,
Mm-hmm.
that's, but I didn't tell him. And then my dad saw, and then he forced me
Mm-hmm.
first to go to my family doctor, had some blood work done. He called, go to emergency, went to emergency, and that's when I was told, your kidneys have failed, you need dialysis, you're eventually going to need a transplant. Now at 19, and not really understanding that that could have been the output of this
Mm-hmm.
visit,
Mm-hmm.
certainly caught, I was shocked. I was trying to understand what he was saying, and what, like
And
what.
you honestly weren't expecting this either. Oh, by
No,
the way, your kidneys are failing,
no.
right?
I'm like, what are
The
like what are
last thing.
like I know we have kidneys, but I'm like, what do you mean my kidneys? I'm like, what's
Exactly.
dialysis and like transplant? The first time I had ever in my life really heard these words.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting there as he's telling me this, and just like trying to wrap my head around it. And my mom was with me at the time. And having grown up and been in and out of the hospital, and my mom always being there with me through all my appointments and everything, I remember just trying to like keep it together. I'm like,
Yes.
internally, you got this. Don't worry your
Mm-hmm.
mom. Don't freak her out.
Yes.
And I was looking over at her. I'll like never forget her face. Her as well, probably thinking the same thing. Don't freak him out. Just like holding in the tears.
Yes.
Um, and then it was when I finally like I asked, okay, like what's dialysis? Like, can you explain what dialysis is? And that's when the attending physician said, well, we're gonna hook you up to a machine. It's gonna filter out your blood and it's gonna try to do the work that your kidneys do. Me not knowing what a dialysis machine looks like or what it is, I pictured myself just like 24/7 walking with like a big IV pole and like this process would just be happening nonstop.
Yes.
And it was at that point that I just like lost it. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
hold it back. My tears just came down. I looked at my mom, and like, of course, she starts crying, and whatnot. But it wasn't well, not such a short explanation. But that's how I found out I had kidney disease. So in Alberta, I'm not sure what other provinces refer them to, but we're called like crash starts because we
Yes.
don't we don't know until it's too late. So at that point, like I needed dialysis to survive, and within 24 hours, less than 24 hours, I was on my first run here at the University of Alberta dialysis unit.
Okay. Okay. Wow. What was going through your parents' mind at this point in time? Like, did you even talk about it? I mean, I know you said you saw your mom crying and visibly upset, but after you left or what happened, like, did you guys actually discuss like what is actually like the gravity of what's going on here?
I think at that point we were still trying to understand what all this meant. I'm gonna keep saying, given what I went through as a child, but like given my pediatric experience, not necessarily with kidneys, so posterior urethral valve impacts the bladder. Actually, I'll provide a little bit more context on that. So it was actually an issue that was developed while my mom was still pregnant. So
Okay.
I basically my bladder wouldn't drain properly. So what happened, even at the time that my mom was pregnant, was the bladder wasn't draining properly, so that caused the bladder to expand. And this is how it was explained. It caused it to expand, um, and then it expanded too much that then it would put pressure on the kidneys,
Okay.
eventually caused scarring. And then by the time I was born, until I was diagnosed at 19, the scarring just got so bad that the kidneys ended up failing. But in terms of your question, I think it was really like given what we'd been through. I mean, we have absolute trust in the medical system, and it was kind of just one of those things. It's like, well, here we are again. Let's do what they tell us. If they tell us you need dialysis, then let's do dialysis. If they tell us you need this transplant, you need this, or like medication, you need this medication. And if you need your transplant after, like that's what we're going to do.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, we talked about it in the sense of like, okay, how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to, like now adjust our lives, but not necessarily in like we just followed what they told us because that had been our
Yes.
experience growing up. It's just like you're the experts, you tell
Yeah.
us.
You guide us. Yeah.
Yeah, which isn't always. I'll preface that by saying it's not always the best approach. It's good to ask questions and be critical and really like find out what's good for you. But at
Yes.
19, I wasn't doing that.
And also, as you mentioned previously, because we spoke previously about this, your parents, they're like you said, the English might not have been top-notch English, for example. So they're trusting the medical system at this point, right? They're
Yeah,
thinking they're not going to do anything to harm our son. So we're going to trust them. They know better than we do, right? So,
spot on. That's exactly it. My parents came from El Salvador. Well, technically from El Salvador via Mexico in 1984. I was born in
mhm,
1986, so they had only been in Canada for less than 2 years by the
yeah,
time I was born. So yeah, their English wasn't the strongest. Even now, their English like they can get by, but it's not the
exactly.
strongest. So to your point, yeah, like they just trusted that what was being said. Um,
Was the right thing to
was
do.
the right thing to do. Exactly. And they
Hmm.
very much instilled that in me.
Yeah.
That you have to follow what they say. If they say do this, don't do that, then that's what we do.
And that's what you do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, in terms of dialysis, is this something that you shared with the family? You allowed, family members to come and sit with you? Because I know myself personally, I didn't want anybody there. I just want to get into the hospital, get hooked up, do what I need to do, and I'm out. And specifically because I knew that dialysis wasn't an easy process for me, and it was tough. Like I was always, I was vomiting, I was nauseous. They had to drug me up just so I wouldn't vomit, and it was just to keep down the nausea. They drug me up, and then by the time I leave, my husband's outside waiting for me. Sometimes they have to call him in to help me get to the car. It wasn't cute. And so I definitely didn't want, friends and spectators to be there with me. So what was your dialysis experience like?
I love that you say that it wasn't cute, and I think
Yeah.
that really sums it up. It's not a pleasant experience. I mean, anybody who's gone through dialysis or has seen anybody in a dialysis machine knows it's not a pleasant experience. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I grapple with like two different things. One, being younger, I think my dialysis experience was a little bit, it's not fair to say, but like I think it was a little bit better than what I saw other folks go through, right? Because you're in a unit, you see everybody, you see the
Mm-hmm.
pain that people are in, you see when
Yep.
their machines are buzzing off, and you
Yep.
see everything. So like for the most part, compared to them, I think I had a very okay dialysis experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been told as I've shared my experiences, like, well, don't compare yourself to others. Like, how was your experience? Um,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. And I will say my experience was, again, it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't cute. So to your question, no, I never had anybody there, and I didn't want anybody there. I think you said it best. I went in there, did my business, got out. Um, I didn't find it enjoyable to have people there. I didn't want people to see me hooked up to a machine. I mean, it's very graphic. You see the blood
Yes.
filtering out. You
Yep.
see, you have the nurses coming by. The nurses are asking
Mm-hmm.
you questions, and it's just like I think a lot of people have issues with like vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that sympathy. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I didn't want to be Manuel the kidney guy, for
Yes.
example. So while I was on dialysis, I like very much downplayed it. I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
speak about my experience. And even now, as I refer to, even though I'm on this podcast or on this video, like I generally don't like talking about my experience because I never want to
Mm-hmm.
be that kidney guy, Manuel the kidney guy. So no, I never had for the most part there. One of the interesting things that happened in life. So I was 19, like I was going to school, but I didn't really have a call it a direction in life. And you're 19, so I think like now as a
Mm-hmm.
37-year-old, like that's okay if you're 19 and you're there.
Yeah.
But one of the positives that I found of dialysis is that it really gave me time to kind of discover who I am and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just there's a lot of time for self-reflection. And one of the things that I really got into was reading, and specifically reading like a lot of like Latin American history. So again, my parents are from El
Mm-hmm.
Salvador, so like a lot of Latin American history and like politics books, and that's what I would do. I would go to dialysis, I would ignore everything. They would hook me up, and I would open up those books, and I would just get lost in those books. Which one helped the time go by, helped your mind get
Mm-hmm.
off things, and two has really like then positioned me. Like it really developed who I am, like as a person, hearing like understanding that history. Um, so so I found that as an interesting outcome. But yeah, maybe I'll pause there. Yeah, before I start rambling, going. So if you have questions, but yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, even with transplant, when I got my transplant, I was very uneasy of having like people visit me, and like
Mm-hmm.
it's good. I get it. It's like it's exciting, and you want people, you want the people,
To share. Yeah.
to share. But I'm also more on the maybe private side where it's just like
Mm-hmm.
let me do my thing, and then we'll, I'll see you once I'm out type of deal.
See, you're singing my song. That's literally me. I don't know if it's just everyone that went through this, but everything you just described, that's me. Like when I was sick, when I was going through everything, I didn't say anything to my family members. They only found out kind of like last minute because
Mm,
things were getting worse, and I had to ask them, if they could donate, if they can get tested to be a donor for me. Before that, nobody knew I had lupus. Nobody knew that I had kidney issues. Nobody knew anything. And that's specifically because I didn't want, like you said, to be that kidney person. Or people would look at me with empathy. Oh, hi, Janine. How are you?
yeah.
Janine, are you okay? Like I'm good. It's okay. Even after transplants, after transplants, been 5 years now, people still, address me. Oh, come have a seat. Come have. No, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I could stand.
Yeah.
I'm good. Thank you. If I need to sit down, I'll grab a chair, but I'm not broken. And I see where they're coming from. Like I 150% get it, but you just don't want that sympathy and that Janine's broken or Manuel the kidney guy. You just don't want that. So I understand 100%. So, Manuel, so now you know that you need to get a kidney. How do you navigate that conversation with your friends and family, asking them to donate? Do you like what do you do? What was your process like?
Yeah, I had it a little easier on my end. So I didn't officially have to go through a process in the sense that right from the beginning, my family said we're gonna get worked up, we're gonna try to get donated. And in fact, my mom was right from the beginning said, I know it's gonna be me, it's gonna be me. But
Oh,
my mom, bless her, my mom, my dad, and both my older brothers. I have a younger sister who's too young to go through it, but um, they all went in for the initial blood test, and
mm-hmm,
right from the beginning, my mom was deemed the best candidate. So
mm,
in terms of navigating it, yeah, I didn't have to do that. I was fortunate that I had them step up, and my mom ended up working out.
good.
It is something that has crossed my mind as to what's going to happen in the future, because as we know,
Mm-hmm.
kidneys don't last forever. I'm at
Yes.
16 years already, so as the years click by, which is fantastic, and also I'm
Mm-hmm.
also mindful of what that might mean. Um, yeah, I'm not. I honestly, I'm not sure what I'm gonna. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think it's just a matter of just sharing your story, letting people know in whatever way you feel most comfortable. Um,
Yes.
like I'd probably, yeah, however, whatever makes you comfortable, and just
Mm-hmm.
sharing that with people, because I've been fortunate to work in this space and live in this space, professionally for 7, 8 years now, and what I've noticed, the stories I hear is,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even looking for anybody to be my living donor, but I was telling them that this is what I was going through, and people just say,
Yes.
I'll donate. Like, what do you need? What's the next step? Right? Like, there's so
Mm-hmm.
many altruistic people out there, that sometimes I wonder. It's like whether you have to ask somebody, or whether it's just about sharing your story, right? Telling people, and then
Mm-hmm.
when somebody will come out and and be willing to do that for you.
Yes.
But I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
Exactly. That's the same mentality I have. I'd like to think that with technology and with everything that's developing, daily in this area, I'd like to think that whenever that happens, we'll be good because they would have something available for us. So we don't have to reach out and ask. And, technology, what they could probably just, I don't know, make one in a lab or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Something somewhere along the line,
yeah,
something's going to work out. And
yeah,
this will solve not only in terms of kidneys, but just transplant in general, whether it's heart, whether it's liver, whatever, something along somewhere along the line, something's going to come up and this will be just eliminated pretty much. So
yeah.
that is my hope. That is what I'm believing in, right?
I do often joke around with my sister, who was too young at the time, but now she's 30. We often joke around. I'm like, you're protecting that kidney, right?
You're
Like,
next.
and like, not that I would hold her to that, because
Yes, of course.
circumstances in life change and whatnot.
Yes.
And but we have that ongoing joke, and she's like, don't worry,
Mm-hmm.
I got you, I got you.
Excellent. So you mentioned that your mom was your donor, which is beautiful. And it's the fact that she knew this was going to happen. It's going to be her. So that's amazing. What was the next steps like at this point? She had to get worked up. And what was the process like for the both of you?
Yeah, the process wasn't entirely clear to me at the point, and I think this is why earlier I said that yes, like I will do what the medical system tells me to, but it's also good to ask questions and like be your own advocate.
Mm-hmm.
It took So I was on dialysis for almost 2 years, and right from the beginning, I had um, 4 people willing to donate. So in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
process, to this day, I'm unclear why it took so long for me to get that transplant. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you go by statistics, at least here in Alberta, they say anywhere from 6 to 9 months work up to get a living donor
Mm-hmm.
transplant. So I'm not clear why it took so long, but in terms of the process itself, yeah, she both of us had to go through numerous different procedures to make sure that both physically, mentally, we were compatible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, we didn't actually talk about it that much. Like I was trying to think
Mm-hmm.
of what was the process, what was the discussion my mom and I had, and it was more of oh yeah, I have this appointment now and I have that appointment now, but we didn't
Mm-hmm.
really debrief on how things were going, but it all worked out, right? Because
Exactly.
I'm here 16 years later. But yeah, I will say, and I always flag that with folks as I share my stories, like ask questions, like you have to be on top of mind of the transplant coordinators, or like your team, right? You're
Of
you're
course.
you're either transplant or nephrology renal team.
Hmm.
or else like I don't know if that's why it took so long for me to get a transplant. Maybe I could have not been on dialysis for that long, but I didn't ask
Hmm.
questions. I just went with what they told me, and
Yes.
so that was a little difficult because by the end of dialysis, like I was, and I know like I nobody wants to be on dialysis. I had developed some sort of allergy to something that was happening in dialysis. So for the last maybe like 2 months, I would get some sort of allergic reaction
Oh
every
no.
time I went on the run. And then they try different things. They try different different detergents on the blankets, and they try to give me different, they change things up.
Mhm.
But nothing seemed to work. So I remember my nurses joking with me. It's like, hey, this is your body telling you, like, you don't want to be here
Get
anymore. You
off.
need a transplant.
Yeah.
By the time I got it, like I was definitely ready to be done with dialysis.
Hmm.
But
Did
it
they
was
ever figure out what it was? Was it
they never
no?
figured out. No, they never figured out.
Oh.
Their solution was to give me Benadryl on my back.
Mm.
So that would
Hmm.
ease the extreme itchiness that I was getting, and it would also
Wow.
just like knock me out for the.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
that was my last 2 months of dialysis. Yeah,
That's a lot.
it's a
That's
lot.
a lot.
Yeah, yeah, but
And so you recently celebrated a kidney anniversary, right?
correct. Earlier this month, September 4th, my mom and I, yeah, celebrated our 16th. Celebrated is a little bit, yeah. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Celebrated is a little bit of a maybe strong term. Typically we try to do something every year,
Hmm.
and it just so happened that the way our lives were this month, and how
Hmm.
busy it is, probably shouldn't say
Yeah.
this, but we forgot that it was our, like, September 4th came and went, and we
Hmm.
didn't officially celebrate, but we connected the day later, and just talked
Good.
to one another. But it's like, I guess that's a good sign that life is,
Hmm.
your transplant at least is going okay. But yeah, 16
Exactly.
years. Been 16
Nothing wrong with that.
years.
Would you say you had a strong support system? I know you said your family was there, but did you turn to any friends? Did you turn to anyone outside of the family for support, whether it's the transplant or the kidney process, or even before with your health issues? Did you turn to anyone?
So growing up, not so much. Okay, so growing up, it's a great question. I know, like, elementary, I know my teachers would always know about my health circumstances. My parents would
Mhm.
be quite open with them just so they can accommodate certain things that I would need.
Mhm.
I never really talked to this about friends, because I mean, you're young, like you don't want to be the weird, again, the kidney guy, you don't want to be the weird, like, sick child, right?
Yeah.
At least for me, I didn't want to be that. And with my, like, pediatric situation, it was the procedure that they had. I don't know what the name is for the procedure, but basically, like, my ureters, they had to reconfigure them to where they came out in my back. So
Mm.
the solution that the doctors gave us was, um, so the pee would just they would just, like, I had little tubes, and it would just come out of there. So I had to wear, like, diapers in the back.
Mm. Yeah.
I would have, like, big diapers, and we would just, like, tie them up with, like, homemade strings in the front, and that's how I would go to
Hmm.
school. So I always remember being very, like, self-conscious
Of
about that.
course. Yeah.
For the most part, I didn't have any issues, but I do remember once, it must have been in grade 2, where it actually, like, leaked through,
Mm.
and being so embarrassed. And it was
Yeah.
literally lunchtime. So I just, like, ran home, told my mom, my mom helped me out, or my parents, I should say, helped me out. And they sent me back to school. And I'll never forget, like, the kids asking me, it's like, oh, why'd you change? Like, what happened? And I'm just like, oh, like, I fell in the puddle, whatever.
Mm.
So I went home. When I, went to junior high, I had one friend that I would always, like, who knew my situation, and to this
Yeah.
day I still consider him one of my best friends. John Tam, if you're watching this, that's you. Um, and I confided with him, like, just a little bit of what I had gone through as a kid, because at that point I was now at yearly check-ins with my doctor, with my urologist, and
Hmm.
they weren't very pleasant procedures that they would not make you go through, but they had to do, right, to just check
Yes.
your how healthy you were, and how healthy my bladder was. And yeah, he really helped me, just trying to, like, just make light of the situation, right? I mean, I was
Mhm.
scared, and one of my least preferred things was, catheters, and he
Of
would know that.
course.
Like I would tell him, yeah, they have to do this and they have to do that. So at least like it was nice knowing that he knew, um, and we can joke about it, and just make light of the situation. Other than him, I didn't really tell people. And going into like high school, I never really talked about what I had gone through as a kid. Uh,
Hmm.
but certainly when I was diagnosed, I had a core group of friends that I had been friends
Good.
with since junior high. So they were nice. They were a good support system.
Good.
They were fantastic, very accommodating. Even trying to like navigate and make plans that would accommodate my dialysis schedule so I didn't miss out and things like that. I never really did talk to them about it. Like I did again,
Hmm.
being the kidney guy, but they were well aware of what I was going through. They were well aware I would need a transplant.
Yes.
And so it was nice to have I'll say their names right now in case they watch this. So it was John still, it was Ian, it was Jason, Miranda, and Timmy. So five of them. Five,
Shout
five.
out to John, Ian, Jason, Miranda, and Timmy.
Yeah, there you
Good
go.
stuff.
If you guys watch this, kudos to you guys because they went above and beyond just to make sure I was like comfortable. And I was like, no, guys, don't worry, like I'm fine. But,
Hmm.
like all the love to them for that. And I do want to share, even with my family. Shout out to my brother Chris. Again, if he watches this, I tend not to share things that I'm like talking because I just hate watching myself and others watching me. But if he stumbles upon this, Chris, who is 4 years older than me. So when I was diagnosed, I was 19. He would have been 23, which like back then I'm like, yeah, my bigger older brother, like he's such an adult, but like he was 23.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, he would drop me off and pick me up every dialysis run for the 21 months. He
Wow.
was 23, so there were some days where like I dialyzed on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays.
Hmm.
It was a Saturday at 23, and he had gone out with friends, and
There's a lot of things you could be doing, right?
a lot of things they're doing. Or when he did go out and do things, he would, leave the party. And let's say he had had a couple, I'm going to say it, if he had had a couple beers and was in no position to drive, which again, for those who can
Yes.
drive, he
Yes.
would bring one of his friends who had not been drinking just to pick me up
That's
and to
amazing.
take me home. For 21 months, he did this. Never missed one, never missed one. And I think it's
That's
so important
amazing.
to talk about that because I'm so lucky and I'm so fortunate that I had that
Hmm.
support and not everybody has that support. Something so small as like just getting to and from dialysis, I think we sometimes take for granted. But those are
Yes.
supports that patients need. And people need to
Hmm.
be aware of that, like how difficult something like that is. So
Hmm.
thank you, Chris. I love you because of that. Not because of that, but in addition to many other things. Um,
We need to send this to Chris and to everybody. We need to send this to them. We can't do this and not share. So
there
we're
you
definitely
go.
going to send this to them. Thank you, Chris. That's amazing. That's amazing.
when I uh,
Wow.
when I got married, that was a story I told about him in my speech to my family. It was because I'll never forget that. I'll be 90 years old. Hopefully, I'm 90 years old, but
That's beautiful.
that's what I'm gonna remember him for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. You're not going to make me cry in this episode. That's not going to happen. Nope. I cry too much. That's not going to happen. So let's talk about you got your transplant.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to bounce back? How long did it take for your mom to bounce back?
Fortunately, we were both very, very lucky. My mom was in the hospital for about 3 days. She had taken 8 weeks off of work,
Okay.
and she went back at the 6 week mark because she fully healed. She
Wow.
she bounced right back. Like I know the first few days were quite tough for her because
Hmm.
we have talked about this, but she says that no, she bounced back up. The work is like, no, take the extra time. She's like, no, like I'm bored at home. I'm ready to come
I'm
back to
good.
work. And 16 years later, she has all the energy of the world. Like you would never know she had one kidney, and I know that's a concern for some folks. It's like, well, what does it mean long
Hmm.
term? She hasn't had any hiccups, medical hiccups. Her one kidney still functions fantastic, and
Beautiful.
I joke that she has more energy than I do at sometimes. So she's doing great, and for me, yeah, I bounced right back up as well. I was in the hospital for a little longer. I was there for about 7, 8 days, but the
Hmm.
kidney took right away. The levels that you want to see were beautiful. Um, so September 4th would have been the beginning of the semester.
Hmm.
And I don't encourage anybody to do this, but I'm sharing my experience.
Yes.
My team, my health team said, take the semester off, just like focus on yourself and go back to school, next
Hmm.
semester or next year, right? But
Yes.
I felt good, and especially compared to how I felt when I was on dialysis, like it was night
Hmm.
and day. Like my recovery was so quick, and just my overall energy and health that I got off the train. So I left the hospital and I took the train and I stopped at my institution to register for classes. That
Wow.
again, I don't recommend that to anybody,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
but I yeah. So I signed up and I signed up for 3 courses. I mean, I started about 2 weeks late, but my instructors understood that I had just had a transplant, so they were more than
Hmm.
accommodating to include me, a couple weeks in, and there we go. So it was
And
great.
you, how was it? Like, did you struggle? Was it more than you could handle, or you're just like, I got this. It's okay.
I got this. It was okay.
Yeah.
I signed up for 3 courses, so it would still
Hmm.
qualify me as like a full-time student, which is
Yes.
important for certain things. Um,
Hmm.
so I didn't do the 5 courses. It was fine. I did it, and it went well, and my semester went well. It was odd at times because they, like, for example, they want you to measure your urine output post
Mm.
transplant. So I was
Hmm.
in school, doing that, and then every so often I'd have to go to the
Take
bathroom,
off.
measure my urine output, and catalog all that.
Hmm.
So some of that stuff would have been a little more easier done at home, but
Yes.
I made it work.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So in the end, everything worked out. You're healthy, your mom's healthy, everything. You're sharing your story now, which is great because your journey is just as important as the next person. Someone's watching this, they can learn from your experience and take notes and ask questions, etc. So everything's great, and I'm happy to hear that. What I'd like to know from you is, do you think this whole process was just everything worked out perfectly as a fluke? It was like, hey, it was meant to be, it was meant to be. Or do you think there's a religious component to this? Do you feel that, God intervened? Do you feel, whomever, Buddha, whomever you may believe in, do you think there was a religious hand in this? Or it's just, no, it was just faith and fate. And this is how it was, this is the way the cookie was meant to crumble.
Yeah, I would adhere more to that. This was the way the cookie crumbled.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting having gone through my whole medical experience. I'm 37, and out of those 37 years, I've basically been a patient my whole life. Um, Officially on some sort of medication for 34 of those 37 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of things could have gone differently.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, I'm thankful to call it the universe.
Yes.
Um, for the way things have rolled out. I mean, it hasn't been an easy situation, but I'm thankful because I know others don't have the experience I have. Um, yeah, that's a good question. It's very much, yeah, I think I meant to be where I'm meant to be. I mean, I know that
Mm-hmm.
sounds cliche, and maybe it is fate. I think with my, like, even like professional skill sets that I have, with my personal experiences, like that's why I'm on the path that I'm on. That's why
Yeah.
I work with CDTRP. That's why,
Mm-hmm.
I've previously worked with the Kidney Foundation, and just meeting patients and trying to like use a little bit of my experience to make things a little bit better for others out there. Um, so yeah, I think this is just the way it was meant to be, and I think this is,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it's the way the cookie crumbled. I
Where the
suppose
cookie crumbles, right?
not the best answer, but
No, that's how you, there's nothing wrong with that answer. That's how
yeah,
you feel, right? So there's nothing wrong. It's your journey. So that's how
yeah.
you feel.
And the last thing I'll add, and I somewhat referenced this earlier, but like just having that time on dialysis. Again, I
Mm,
was only 19, so like I probably put too much pressure on myself to like, okay, what's your life trajectory going to be, right? But
mm-hmm,
having that time on dialysis, which is where I see this as like as a positive out of all the negativity. Like it really gave me like that time, like I said earlier, to reflect and learn like those books that I read, and yeah, they're history books, like political science books, but
Hmm.
that's what captures me. But that like has real like that really ingrained a
Of
certain
course.
like, value in me,
Yes.
you know. So like the Latin American history is not easy. Like there is so much struggle in there.
Yes.
I think I've taken those learnings and really try to apply that, whether it's in donation transplant research or whether it was with
Hmm.
in my kidney life, and for that I'm thankful. So that's why
Yes.
maybe it was fate. Like maybe this is why I'm here, and
Hmm.
I had that time that I am somewhat thankful for, because otherwise I don't know
Yes.
what would have happened, what routes I would have ended up on. So
Hmm.
yeah.
I've always said that my journey wasn't an easy journey, but if it ended up this way in the end with a transplant and have me sitting here on the Green Table Talk, talking to amazing people like you, sharing our stories, it was all worth it. I feel that 100%. The upset stomach, the nausea, everything, I would do it again in a heartbeat if it ended up right here.
Yeah.
Because for me, this is the best place at this point. For me, this is the best place to be, right?
Yeah,
So,
agreed. Perfectly said.
one last question for you. What would you say to someone who comes up to you and says, hey, Manuel, I'm thinking of donating. I don't know. I mean, I've heard stories. If I donate a kidney, it reduces my life expectancy. You know, they say liver grows back. Does it really? Like, I'm kind of skeptical. I'm kind of skeptical. What would you do at that point? Would you encourage them to do more research? Would you encourage them to donate? What would you do at that point?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, I think I would just like you find out a lot by asking questions.
Yes.
So understanding somebody's skepticism, I can't say that word.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important. So just like engaging in like a very nice, like casual, informal conversation would probably
Mm-hmm.
be my step one, trying to understand why they're interested in donating, and two,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to understand like maybe what some of the what do they want to know, like what do they want to learn, and fortunately I have some experience from both like professional and personal that I can draw upon. um
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be, yeah, trying to understand and then trying to fill in those gaps. I'd be trying to fill in those gaps as best as I could, and also
Mm-hmm.
connect them with the resources that they may want to see, right? Like I wouldn't want to like all of a sudden force somebody to be like, oh yeah, no, you have to do it, and here's this
Yes.
book, and here's this, and you can go, and this is the number you got to call, right? Like
Yeah.
I think it's really about like navigating that like carefully, because we don't
Mm-hmm.
want to scare anybody off. But in a nutshell, I would even pull from my experience. Hey, this is me. Like this is what I went through. This is what I go through. This is what more patients go through. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
a lucky one. I've said this many times. I'm a lucky one.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, it was not an easy journey. But like you can make somebody's life better. Sometimes when I share
Mm-hmm.
my experience, I pull on the good. Which like now I'm like, well, should I just pull on the good? I should probably talk about more of the realistic bad stuff. But when I share my experience, I'm like, because of my transplant, I finished school, I got married, I traveled, I have a child now,
Mm-hmm.
like there's so much that I've been able to accomplish because of my transplant. And
Yes.
1000% without this transplant, I mean, could I have accomplished that? Maybe yes, maybe no, it would have been more difficult. But
Exactly.
the pathway was made easier because of this transplant. And that's what we want to give people, right? We say the second chance of life, the gift of life. That's what we want to do. And we all have it in us. Like it's a cliche, we all have it in us, but we all have
Mm-hmm.
a kidney, we can all donate a part of our liver, um, or we can sign a donor card, right? And then
Exactly.
talk about the importance of that, and why
Mm-hmm.
then sharing to others or sharing with your family members, your close ones, why you want to be an organ donor. So if the time
Mm-hmm.
comes, people are aware of your decision. Um, yeah, but yeah, encourage
Well
it.
said.
Yes, we got to encourage it in a very like thoughtful way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's true. Make your wishes known. And so if heaven forbid something should happen, your family knows, okay, this is what, Jackie would want, or this is what Bill would want. So that's the conversation is definitely important. Definitely important. I am so blessed to have this conversation with you, Manuel. I'm glad you shared your journey and your mom. Shout out to your mom as well.
Yeah. I wish he could have been here, but yeah,
I
next
know, but her impact is right in front of us. So,
time.
that's the next best thing. So, this is the time I would share negative knowledge with you and the audience. And I try to get something that kind of embodies or encompasses your story, your journey. So this is the nugget of knowledge today. When you look into a mother's eyes, you know she has a pure, genuine love for her children. And because of this love, she's willing to sacrifice anything for them. And that's what I think of when I hear your story. Your mom, she told you she was going to be the organ donor. Like, you know what I mean? She knew it's okay. I'll take care of this. Yeah. She knew she was going to save her son's life and give him life a second time around, which I think is beautiful. Right. And that's, I don't know. Besides that, I mean, you can't get any better than that. No, you didn't have to look far. Like, she was there and she told you. Right.
She told me, like, the most incredible mom I could ever ask for. I agreed. And one, thank you for sharing that. I think that's very beautiful, very beautifully said. But yeah, she's my hero, right? She's
yes.
She does everything. She continues doing everything, and she always jokes. She's like, "Oh, you know, if you ever needed another kidney, like, I have the other one." I'm like, "Mom, no." I'm like, "No, Mom, you can't do that." But thank you, and I love you, and I
appreciate.
Yeah.
You kind of need that one now.
You need that one. That's yours. That's yours.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Manuel, once again, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. Thank you very much for educating us and letting us know. Thank you for doing such a great job with your organization. Thank you for shouting out everyone that helped you and supported you. And thank you for not letting me cry. I really do appreciate that, because like I said, can't do it too many times. Put that one back. So thank you very much.
You know, out of all this, sorry, I'm going to continue for like 2 more minutes.
Okay, it's okay.
The biggest acknowledgement out there, my wonderfully supportive wife, who has been through, like, okay, come on. Like, okay, so she, like, when I got diagnosed, we were friends at the time. Like, I've known her for a very, very long time. So she's seen me through that. She was there when I got, diagnosed, when I got dialysis. Actually, the only time somebody ever visited me on dialysis was my first run, and she didn't stay for the whole thing. It was her and a group of friends. Where is it? Okay, so bear with me. I'm so sorry.
No, it's by all means.
She loves tigers. She loves tigers, and growing up, she always had a tiger collection. And when we were, again, before we were anything, when we were friends, she had this one particular tiger that she would always tell me was her favorite. And me, like, I don't know, trying to be flirtatious. I'm like, oh, I'll have that tiger one day, right? Like, however you flirt when you're like 16, 17, 18. Remember, I got diagnosed, and right before I went on my first dialysis run, so they left before I went, when I was officially put on, she came and brought me this tiger. This is the tiger of reference that was my favorite. And I carried this little guy my entire stay when I was first diagnosed. So I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks, which I didn't add. Carried him with me. Every time I'd go to dialysis, he was with me. I got my transplant, this little guy was with me. And now, just on this side here on my computer, stares at me every day. She has been the most supportive person. Been there when I got my transplant. We've been married now for 10 years. 9 years, going on 10, and we've been together for about 13 years. And through everything, make sure that I take care of myself, that she makes sure that I like mentally.
Manuel, I said, don't make me cry.
Sorry. The best supporter I could ever ask for. So wanted to thank her, of course. One of my concerns, one of my fears, I think is important for people to know. I'm scared. I've said this publicly once, so it's gonna be my second time. I'm not scared. Well, I shouldn't say that, but like, if and when this kidney fails, I think I'll be able to cope with that. I think I'll be able to adapt with that. I've been through it already.
Yes.
My concern, and why we need more support for caregivers, my concern is her. I want to make sure she has the support that she needs. I don't want her to just be worried about me, and then I'm worried about her worrying about me.
Yes.
So, like, in general, with the work that we've done at CDTRP, like, this is something that's come up multiple times. It's caregivers. How can we support? And that's what I get worried about, right? Because I want to make sure she's okay when that next step comes, and we'll navigate that together. But for now, she's been just my most absolute rock. And now with my little one, little trio of us. It's just beautiful. So I can't believe I didn't say that earlier, but there we are. Here we are.
It's okay. Better late than never.
Thank you, wife, for everything you do.
Thank you, Manuel's wife. Beautiful. Excellent. And when you reach that point in time, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It worked out before, and it's going to work out again. That's the way I see it. I'm an optimist, and that's the way I see it. Yes, exactly. Oh, I almost made it out of this episode. Manuel, jeez. Well, thank you once again for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story, your journey, sharing your love for everyone that's helping you out, your great support system, and just thank you for educating our viewers. I really appreciate you being here and joining us today.
Thank you for the invite. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course, of course. And we'll see you again next time on the Green Table Talk. Bye-bye.